Welcome to Good Friday reflections or meditations, and I'm envisaging the contents of this video, keeping all people in mind, people from every background whatsoever, or for people without any distinction. However, I have in mind particularly the youth of the world, because the content of this video will be particularly useful to young people. Why I say so will be evident as we proceed further into the investigation of our topic. The Good Friday experience. That's the suffering of Jesus Christ, which culminates in his death on the cross, a suffering of unspeakable nature, a suffering which is aggravated, among other things, apart from physical torture, aggravated by the reality of utter aloneness, complete isolation from the rest of the world. The very significance of Jesus' personality was that he came to be one with humanity. As John says so beautifully in his Gospel, the Word became flesh and dwelt in our midst, full of grace and truth. So he dwelt in our midst. He came to be with people. Therefore, quite naturally, he exhorted people to be with him and allow him to be with them. In fact, he went a step further and said, "Abide in me and I in you." And as the final celebration of that, he celebrated the last meal in which he symbolically offered his body and blood, the very secret, the very essence of his life is to his disciples. So if you look at all this, you find that the real joy and the real significance of the personality of Jesus Christ is his thirst to be one with humanity, one with all people. And that was the reason why he could not stay confined within man-prescribed boundaries and limitations. He had to necessarily rebel against and exceed those boundaries. So he went and met the woman of Samaria. He interacted with Zacchaeus, who was an object of aversion in the eyes of the Jews. He helped the woman of Canaan, the Canaanite woman. He was responsive to the need of the Roman centurion. In fact, he violated every limitation prescribed by the Jewish religious authority simply because of his irresistible, unlimited thirst to be one with humanity. Jesus saw the whole of humanity as one. That's also the reason why I say that the substance of this video is envisaged to be of universal relevance. But within that, I recognize a special category, the young people all over the world. There again, the young people as a universal category. Now, if you want to understand the meaning of the experiences of Jesus and the logic behind the suffering of the innocent, a good starting point is the fact that at the fag end of his life, he is completely disowned by everyone, including his own disciples. That's the utter isolation of the Son of Man. I don't know to what extent you have focused on this, meditated on this, and understood its significance. To me, this is supremely significant. You cannot meditate on the experience of Jesus Christ on that Good Friday, or that Friday, if you like. It came to be recognized as good only subsequently, without realizing the utter aloneness, the utter loneliness, the sheer abandonedness of the Son of Man. And this is something that we need to really come to terms with. We must understand why. Why was Jesus abandoned by everyone? Why was Jesus isolated and targeted and ultimately eliminated by the religious establishment of the times? Now, clearly, there is a pattern here. And that pattern comes to its climax in the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. And what is that pattern? The pattern is many against one. Many against one. Or to use sociological terms for it, herd instinct versus personality orientation. And it's because of this that I say that the theme of this video is particularly relevant to the youth of the world, irrespective of religious, linguistic, cultural, national barriers and distinctions. So this is a fundamental, universal, most basic distinction. There are only two orientations possible. Either you are oriented to the herd, the crowd, or you are oriented to personality and you become an authentic personality. You can't be both. And living as we do today in this age of the rise of the masses, and what is even worse, the rise of the mass media. Everything is mass, everything is mass. The individual has shrunk to the absolute minimum. In fact, if you examine world literature of the last century, and it continues into the 21st century, one of the most dominant running themes through the literature of this period, irrespective of which nation produced this literature, in all literatures, is the dwindling stature of human beings. Systems are becoming larger and gigantic. Nations are becoming stronger. Arms of destruction are becoming more and more horrendous. Scales of operations are becoming astronomical. But human beings are shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. They're like small ants creeping on the face of the earth. And this is actually the tragedy of our times. And therefore, the suffering of Jesus Christ, the meaning of it, makes particular sense in our times. And it needs to be understood as such. So what comes to a head, that comes to a collision, head-on collision, which results in the crucifixion of Jesus Christ, is the two completely different orientation. The herd orientation of human beings and the personality orientation that's possible. Now, religions are organized. It doesn't matter which religion you talk about. All religions are organized on the principle of herd orientation. So, community building. And every faith community is exactly nothing more, nothing less, is exactly a herd with a particular set of doctrines and dogmas as the cohesive principle, with a certain narrative or meta-narrative, if you like, as the point of cohesion, something to hold this community together. But basically, all religious communities are herds, human herds. And that's why this metaphor of the shepherd continues to be so relevant, though we're no longer in the idyllic cultural context, idyllic way of life, when the shepherd would lead the sheep wherever he pleased. So a member of the fold, the individual sheep that in the fold, is distinguished by its incapacity to think for itself. And its sole virtue is that it follows the leader wherever he wants to lead. And therefore, we don't really look to a sheep to get an example, an inspiring model of personality development. But when we think of Jesus Christ, we don't think of him as a crowd. Certainly, the crowd was attracted to him. Now, here is the supreme paradox. Those who are herd oriented will be insignificant and therefore ignored by the herd. Those who acquire, those who seek to acquire and develop their personality will be attracted by the crowd and the crowd will follow them. But if the person who is thus followed by the crowd is a person of spiritual understanding, spiritual responsibility, he will no longer keep the members of the group like a shepherd keeping individual sheep in the flock. He will make sure, he will do all he can to enable each member of the crowd that's following him distinct and invaluable personalities, persons and personalities. And this is the hallmark of Jesus' mission, though this is not talked about. Now, we have heard this kind of religious cliche, that Jesus Christ expects us to be born again. And unfortunately, that very beautiful but very profound spiritual concept is desecrated through a cultic misinterpretation of it. By being born again, what Jesus meant is relinquishing this herd mentality by which you simply become an underdeveloped, dependent member of a cohesive, well organized group from which you may derive all kinds of perks and benefits, advantages, no doubt. But the price that you have to pay is too heavy. The price is your own personality. You never become an authentic, distinctive, discrete personality, and you never really realize the beauty and greatness of being who you are. In contradistinction to this, there is the figure of Jesus Christ, who was an authentic person, the Son of Man. And therefore, the final verdict on him, very interestingly, is from the representative of the greatest empire of the times, Roman centurion. Truly, he was the Son of God. Truly. So he's astonished at the grandeur and the magnificence, the brilliant shaft of light that this person is. Something that a mere member of the crowd can never attain. So while the religious orientation at best seeks to make you an obedient, faithful, docile member of this flock who follows without asking a question whatever instructions are given from time to time, who abides by every requirement, carries out every obligation, fulfills every traditional requirement, and in the process, and that's the tragedy of it, out of his very good intentions, out of his eager and faithful compliance with all that is required of him, he becomes a zero, a living corpse virtually. In contrast to that, you have the personality of Jesus Christ, who refuses to be a cog in the machine, who refuses to be a mere sheep in the flock, and who insists on being an authentic individual, and who gives to us the eternal insight, undying insight, that he who is in alliance with or in harmony with God will necessarily become an authentic human being. And in fact, faith as Jesus understood it is the power that enables you to break out of this life of abject dependence on the group and to attain this new life of complete dependence on the will of God. There are only two possibilities. Either you depend on the group, the herd, with its hierarchical structure, leadership, its material assets, its customs, traditions, dogmas, etc., or you depend on God and daily seek the will of God and obey to the last letter. The second option makes you an authentic individual whose presence is felt. And faith is that power which enables you to be born again, dying to the old state of life in which you are a mere member of the flock, completely indistinguishable from X, Y, or Z, having no specific goal in life, drifts from day to day, like in the material context, a mere consumer. You see, from a materialistic cultural perspective, the only definition of an individual human being is that he is a consumer. And every consumer is the same. You go to a shop and you want to buy a bar of chocolate. It makes no difference to a shopkeeper who you are so long as you pay the money. A Nobel laureate going to buy a chocolate bar is the same as a beggar going to buy the same chocolate bar provided he pays the same amount of money. So there is no distinction there. But the speech that a Nobel laureate makes or the work that a Nobel laureate writes is a different proposition altogether. There he is acting as an individual. The function of the beauty, the greatness of creativity is that creativity is a function of the authentic individual. Because now, because of artificial intelligence, you can make the machine write a poem or a short story for you, God forbid. But a person who is in that state of creativity is a profoundly discrete, distinguished, and developed individual. He's not a crowd. So Jesus was distinguished by this profound creativity, and therefore you see his personality. It was the power of his personality that attracted everyone. In the first chapter of the Gospel of Mark, you find Jesus walking on the shore of Galilee. He comes across Simon and his brother Andrew. He says, "Come and follow me," and they follow him. Why? The power of his personality. Even the demon possessed realized the power of that personality. What does the leper say, coming and standing a distance from him? Says, if only you say the word, a word, I'll be cleansed. It's not the word, it's the personality, the power of the personality. So, the real spiritual challenge is to die to this old system, the worldly system of life in which you're required to be a mere cog in the machine, to be convenient to others, to be a convenient tool to be used by every Tom, Dick, and Harry, to becoming a distinct individual imbued with a clear sense of purpose, which is the higher purpose, the purpose of God, for the fulfillment of which we are placed upon this earth, which is the secret of our personal fulfillment and the power of our personality. And what you find throughout the public ministry of the Lord Jesus Christ is a clash between these two completely different, totally contrary orientations of human life, either oriented to the flock, the herd, or towards the authentic human being. The point is, from the perspective of this herd orientation, the insistence on the part of the individual that he should become and function as an authentic individual is sheer rebellion. It is heresy. It is ultimate danger. And it must be destroyed, it must be put out. And it should not be endured even for a moment. It was this that made the establishment authorities of Judaism, high priest onwards, high priest Sanhedrin, the Pharisees, the Sadducees, the whole jing bang lot, made so obsessed with the need to eliminate Jesus Christ. Without understanding this pattern, how do you understand the meaning of Jesus' death on the cross? So it's extremely, extremely, extremely important to know that the sheer presence of an authentic person will provoke brutal aggression from those who believe that human life is nothing but the herd instinct, and the sole responsibility of man is to be a faithful, dependent, abject member of this well organized group, which is what all church membership is all about. You examine your own predicament. Are you an authentic individual in the context of your church life? If you are, I salute you. But I have not come across anyone to this day who, with hand on heart, can really claim that in the context of church life, I am an authentic member. I'm an authentic human being. I'm an authentic person. I'm a faithful member, no doubt. Everyone is a faithful member. But faith itself, the very concept of faith, is abused in the process. If you dare to understand the meaning of the word faith, Jesus understood the word faith very different to how it's understood in the church context today. It's a revolution. It is a very principle of transformation. And transformation is a radical shift from the state of herd mentality to this blessed, glorious, incomparable state of being an authentic individual whose life is powered, empowered, and inspired, rendered radiant through a kind of enthusiastic obsession with the higher purposes that God has enjoined on you. That is clearly the significance of the power of Jesus' personality. And it is this Jesus that we are required to imitate. Who is a Christian? A Christian is one who imitates Jesus Christ. And yet in our church life, it's exactly the opposite. And unless and until we become aware of this contradiction, we will not take one step forward. We'll continue in this miserable state, we'll perish before we realize that we have forgotten to live. And this is the classic way of wasting one's life, and that's the ultimate tragedy. And therefore, what you find in the crucifixion of Jesus Christ is the aggression, the impulse of aggression, or the aggressiveness generated by the sheer presence of one who is leading an authentic life, an authentic personality, one who has an authentic personality. If young people want to understand the principle and paradigm of personality development, look to Jesus Christ. You can't do anything better. But then please remember that this will provoke everyone who believes that the only possibility for a human being is to be part of this herd, like a herd of animals being driven here and there by the leaders wherever they please, wherever it suits their convenience, and in the process daily of frittering away your personality. So this is clearly what is enacted, what is displayed, what is worked out on the cross of Calvary. Jesus is paying the ultimate price for being an authentic, spiritually illumined, spiritually inspired human being. And therefore, his experience of crucifixion is relevant to humanity at large. Many young people have asked me in the past, what is the connection between the death of Jesus some 2000 years ago and my condition today? How can I believe that the death of Jesus Christ can avail me living as I do today? Yeah, this is how it can avail you, provided you are willing to undergo that shift in foundation. So therefore, the triumph and tragedy of Jesus on the cross is the triumph of personality. And that's why you have that response from the Roman centurion, so clearly recorded in the gospel narrative. Truly, he was the Son of God. Now, just imagine, after you are dead and gone, people saying, truly, truly he was an authentic human being. Truly he was. On the other hand, as Soren Kierkegaard writes in one of his books, he says, majority of the people in this world are like the dry leaves that fall from the tree and are blown away by the wind into the deep forest, never to be seen thereafter. He says, what a pathos, what a tragedy. People live like that, he says. And another great author who is considered a pessimistic author, I am not an advocate of pessimism, but there are some brilliant insights in his writings. His name is Schopenhauer, Arthur Schopenhauer. In one of his books, I don't remember which book it is, he says that the one thing that people who are living like members of the herd cannot tolerate is the presence of an authentic human being. He said you don't have to do anything in order to attract the hate and hostility of these creeps and worms, two-legged creeps and worms. All you have to do is to lead an authentic life. And they will hate you and despise you, and they will think that unless and until you're eliminated, they cannot rest in peace. And that's clearly the mentality that resulted in the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. Jesus was tried before Pontius Pilate. Don't forget the verdict. He said, I find no guilt in him, but go and crucify him. Why? He cannot be condemned on the basis of what he has done. He can be condemned on the basis of who he is. He's an authentic personality, and therefore he has no right to exist among us. That's clearly the meaning of the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. And keeping this out, how can you understand the significance of what Jesus underwent on Good Friday, a Friday like this, many, many centuries ago, 2 millennia ago? Thank you. All the very best.